everyone, and welcome back to another video. Once again, it's time for Nostalrius drama. Yup, everybody's favorite and least divisive happy topic ever. So, we do actually have some very interesting news from Nostalrius. I think it's quite newsworthy, and they have also mentioned me in their article, which I did think was a bit odd when I read it, so I think it's important that I let everybody know where I stand on this topic. Now, they have decided that private servers is actually not the ideal way to reach their goal, and they're therefore stopping character transfers to Elysium, and they've then asked Elysium to cease to use their data. Overall, it's very interesting. A lot of the people who enjoyed Elysium, understandably, aren't particularly happy about this. Now, if you're a bit out of the loop and you missed the previous development, the short of it is that after BlizzCon 2016, when Blizzard didn't talk about legacy stuff, the Nostalrius dev team basically released their source code to another dev team behind a server called Elysium. Using that, they attempted to bring back Nostalrius along with people's characters. At the time, I kind of criticized them because I thought it was burning a potential bridge with Blizzard, which I didn't really like, especially if they decided to release the source code publicly, going past the Elysium people, to everyone. I felt that wanting solid information about legacy stuff from Blizzard after BlizzCon so soon after Legion's launch was, well, unrealistic, because I didn't think that, their goals as a company would really align, given how a lot of the Legion content was talked about at BlizzCon. I thought maybe, the BlizzCon after the most recent one would be a likely time to see legacy stuff if it was to happen. But before we fast forward to today, I want to clarify my general position and my thoughts on a lot of the divisiveness. I think this topic is needlessly divisive. On sort of that point, I suppose all I would say is that it's clear that everybody involved likes the game. They like World of Warcraft as an IP, as a franchise, and therefore we're all on the same side, so there's no real reason to be a dick about it, and if somebody is being a dick about it, just don't respond to them, don't feed the troll. Now, my personal perspective on Nostalrius, the private server, was that my perspective doesn't matter. That might seem a bit odd, but hear me out. Whether or not it is something that you want or do not want on an individual basis is mostly irrelevant, because there is a clear demand which does exist. We can disagree about the size of that demand, but it would be completely foolish to delude ourselves into thinking that there is not any demand. So, if there's a demand for a product that exists, but nobody is supplying that demand, well, either people A, accept that and move on, or B, they try to meet that demand themselves. That is just how the world works. Getting Game of Thrones at the same time as it was aired in the US used to be really hard, so people would pirate it. It's a bit of an open secret that HBO don't mind people pirating Game of Thrones, as they understand it's good for their brand, good for their merch sale, and good for their box set sales. Hell, it even seems likely that they leak some of their episodes early to drum up hype. Now, yes, pirating stuff is illegal, but we live in the real world, and to deny the reality that people are okay with that is just, well, not really paying attention to what's actually going on. So, of course, people are going to play Vanilla WoW on a private server if they, want to do that, and Vanilla WoW is not available officially. I think that this is a truth that needs to be accepted if an honest conversation is going to be had on the topic, and that is in addition to understanding the other truth, that it is not really particularly legal to do the private server stuff and download the clients, but, while we do have to be mindful of the illegality, we also need to be realistic about what actually happens in the real world. Okay, enough of that talk, let's actually get on to the news. So, the Nostalrius team talked about how their main goal was to get official legacy servers and to also unify the World of Warcraft community. Good job on the last one. It's a very divisive topic. It's kind of crazy, but they feel that their decision to release the source code to Elysium has made both of those goals harder, in part due to the stigma of piracy and a few other things, and that's basically the main outline of their post. They also said that they found that only 10% of former Nostalrius players have generated a character token to import onto the Elysium server. That is low. That's actually lower than I personally would have expected. It is true that Elysium seems to have had a very healthy population, but clearly, some of that Nos community didn't really decide to come back. Why is that? Well, they have already went through losing a character. I mean, the people who were playing in Nos, they've lost the character, and they may be afraid that will happen again. Also, that whole period of time with Nos was a bit of a fad. It was the popular thing to do. Vanilla was super cool at the time. Now that people went in and, perhaps scratched that itch, they don't feel like putting in all the effort to do it again, perhaps unless Blizzard actually do an official version. Overall, the basics of what the Nost team said is they think they made a bit of a mistake with the whole Elysium situation, which is kind of as much as I, really said at the time. I don't want to speculate too much here, but it could be that there has been some back-channeling that we don't know about between Nostalrius and between Blizzard. The Nostalrius did talk about, they want to do other projects to promote sort of official vanilla servers. If they knew official servers were in the works, it would make sense for them to stop pushing private servers and focus on creating support and content to prepare for an official launch, as well as building out a community. It would make for a good bit of guerrilla marketing from Blizzard, but I think that's unlikely. Blizzard would have likely felt somewhat betrayed by the Nostalrius team's post-BlizzCon decision, and I think it's very unlikely that they would therefore trust them enough to share any plans. So as much as back-channeling could be a conspiracy theory, I don't really think it's true. The Nostalrius team have actually asked Elysium to stop using their data, and they've also stopped character transfers. What does that mean? Well, your Nost character is truly gone now if you haven't transferred it over. They could also be asking Elysium to stop using their source code, but the post was really vague. I mean, the data, that could allude to anything. There are plenty of people who I think will undoubtedly feel hard done by and to a degree betrayed. I've seen a lot of posts about the great cuckening of Nostalrius everywhere. I think it's a fair way to feel given how much time people have actually put into it, as ill-advised as putting time into that may have been, given the potential of something like this actually happening. I suppose most people wouldn't have really thought it would come from Nostalrius though. So overall, where does this leave us? Well, I think it's kind of mixed. I would pay additional money on top of my sub to access official vanilla servers, but for me, playing Nost or Elysium just doesn't really make sense. I suspect that's a common situation for many players. So this whole Elysium situation might have, I think, damaged our chances of official servers due to that kind of perception of a lack of demand. While character transfers have been prevented, I think it is also unlikely that Elysium will shut down. I mean, they're running a private server. If they're not going to listen to a large corporation, do you really think a forum post from a bunch of hobbyist developers is going to scare them off? Likely not. I mean, perhaps out of honor or something like that, but I do think it's kind of unlikely. Okay, I'm just recording this quick little section after to append Elysium's response to what Nostalrius said to this video so that it is informationally complete. Now, Elysium have released a statement, and they're basically, in that statement, they say that they feel like these are unfortunate circumstances. They told their community that they are going to be discontinuing the Nostalrius core tech, and that they will be rebuilding it, or, their own version of it, and that should actually be something that's up within the next few weeks. So that was kind of interesting. They're also renaming their servers, and they've given some numbers. Now, Nostalrius is trying to paint Elysium as not being that successful with that 10% number. However, it seems like Elysium, assuming these numbers are actually legit, and, they could be or they couldn't be, but assuming they're legit, Elysium's doing very well indeed. They've actually had a peak concurrency of 30,500 across their 4 realms. That's many than, most games. Look at the top 100 concurrently played in Steam. 30,500 puts you quite a good way up that list. I'm sure the servers cried at that one. Overall, they've had a engagement of 50% of their total accounts being active within the last 7 days, which is insanely high. A 155% increase in active accounts in comparison to Nostalrius, and they said that 52% of active Nostalrius accounts transferred over that 16-day token period. Now, it's worth saying here that these could just be numbers from the early peak of Elysium, and that they will tail off after this as people lose interest. However, Vanilla WoW is a very sticky game as far as its engagement and retention went, and it could be the case that this community could, even if it stays at roughly the size it is now, that it could persist for quite a while. It's also equally possible that a lot of the people who feel perhaps betrayed by the Nostalrius development team will actually, finally, bite the bullet, head over to Elysium. It's hard to know overall, and I'm sure for a lot of the players who play in retail this isn't particularly interesting news, but I suppose it is newsworthy because it's an example of a private server that's actually really competing with a lot of Blizzard servers. I don't know exactly what the concurrent players in Draenor EU are, but I'm sure that a private server looking at, peak concurrency of 17,000, I'm sure that's giving my server a run for its money. So this is clearly something that, if it continues to be as successful as it has been, in its early days, it could actually be motivating for Blizzard, or at least a good example of private servers actually, working. And maybe they'll decide to do some sort of official one after that. Now, I do suppose that I might get a little bit of pushback for sharing these numbers because they are, if they're true, and that's the big caveat, if they are actually true, they're definitely quite convincing as to the, for the success of Elysium. And, often whenever these things are going well, the person who reports that they're going well kind of gets shot down in the comments for some reason, because apparently denying the truth is the right way to do things, which is a bit bizarre. So I just refer back to the start of the video. At the end of the day, whether you're pro or against, whether you're okay with people pirating Game of Thrones because they can't realistically or, easily get it for money in their country, whether you're pro or against, people are going to do what they're going to do, and clearly they, or at least a good chunk of people, are choosing to play on this server. So if it does well, maybe it's a use case for Blizzard to go ahead and try to roll their own solution. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't really anticipate covering Nostalrius again. I said that last time, but this really does sort of seem to be the, our sort of breaking point. Nostalrius maybe falls over, Elysium kind of rises up, takes all their hype, and we're right back to where we started, with there being a popular set of private servers for World of Warcraft, and, there not being an official one and a whole bunch of people lobbying for an official one. We'll just have to wait and see. I do wish the Nostalrius team every success in their goal of lobbying for legacy servers and strengthening the community. I hope that it truly is strengthened and not just turned into some sort of troll brigade that, spams every single one of my videos with "Retail's dead, go play Nost," which I get it, guys, but it's kind of annoying. The launch of official legacy servers would likely just be a take it or leave it situation. Perhaps an additional subscription on top of the base World of Warcraft one. If you don't like it, then you don't really have to play it and it wouldn't affect you, but if you do, then hey, give Blizzard some more money, and perhaps some of that extra money will make it back into the development budget of the retail game. It's hard to know overall. What I would mainly just say is that none of this is particularly worth getting angry about, but overall I do like the idea of trying vanilla out again sometime, and I do think there's a lot of credence to the argument of it sort of existing as a way to preserve a game that's very important to the history of the industry, and also to, I suppose, some degree, some elements of our kind of modern online culture. That is something that Blizzard themselves have said is, something they really sympathize with, so perhaps sometime, maybe within a year or two, there will be some sort of official solution. But anyway, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.